Zombieman Jay joins the show today to talk UFC Doha. We are talking Arman Tsarukyan. We are talking Dan Hooker. We're talking Belal Muhammad, Ian Machado-Garry. We've got so much to talk about today, so we're not going to waste time. We're going to get right into it. First of all, Zombieman Jay, what's up, dude? How are you doing, man? Thanks for coming on for the first time.
Man, I'm doing great. As Leon Edwards' strongest soldier, currently in recovery still, but
Ugh.
we doing okay. As John Wei Lee's strongest soldier as well. Still going through it, but it's okay. It could be better.
All right, so if you want to know the truth, bro, I was out here telling people raw that Jack Della was going to beat Islam. I was just telling them like, hey, yeah, Jack Della's going to beat Islam. And comments, they've been letting me have it.
Okay, this is what I don't like. Quick side note, because I have to bring this up.
Yeah.
I don't like in MMA, especially with someone like Jack Della. And the same thing happened with DDP. Once they lose, it was, they were never that good. Oh,
Get out of here.
Jack Della
Yeah.
sucks. The dude can't wrestle. Oh my gosh, he sucks. But I'm like, that fight was 50-50. It says more about Islam, not as much about Jack. Islam, I think, at this point, in my opinion, at minimum, top 5 all time. I know some people may think that's a little too much.
That's what I've been saying.
I probably have him in my top 3, honestly. I think I got him
So wait. Who's your top 5 then? Who you got?
in no order.
Right.
Okay.
I
In
can
no
give you
order.
4. I can give you 4.
I can say I got John in there.
1,
I got GSP,
2,
Mighty Mouse,
3,
Islam.
4. That's
and
my
at this
4.
and at this point now, I probably put Volk in the mix as well. I think Volk just slightly passed Aldo for me, very slightly, very very slightly. When he got the belt back from Diego, I was like, maybe I'll notch him over Aldo.
I think that's a little recent for me. I don't know. You got people like DC who'd been amazing up to that point, and like Fedor Emelianenko and all that. Like there's some OGs that are really out there. So it's like number 5 is hard for me to pick. Everybody wants to say Anderson Silva, and I'm like, you can't discount those last losses that he had, those 20,000 losses in a row. So like that's an argument for another day, and I'll get into it all day long. But like the top 4s, they're easy for me, and Islam is definitely in there. You could argue that he could go above Demetrius Johnson simply for going up in weight, but as far as like the title defenses and stuff, he that's Demetrius Johnson's claim to fame. So whereas Islam succeeded being up a weight class, Demetrius Johnson could never really cut it at 130. Well, he might have been able to later, but like he'd fought Dominic Cruz, and Dominic Cruz just ran through him. Wasn't even a close fight. So yeah, I don't know. 5 is tough, but let's get into today's topic. Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker. Kind of a weird fight, if you want to know the truth. Nobody wants to fight Arman Tsarukyan. Poor Arman, man. He hurts his neck trying to impress Nina Drama. Do you remember that? Like he was doing like neck bridges in front of Nina Drama. It was the weirdest thing.
He was walking around.
They saw that and they're like, all right, man, come on, bro. Like
he has no fight where he needs to be doing all that. There's no fight of his where he needs to be doing all that.
Chill, bro. Like that's what they're telling him. But like he hurts himself, so nobody wants to fight him. And when they're kind of like blacklisting him, which kind of isn't fair, but that's what happens when you have a monopoly on a sport. But now he's fighting Dan Hooker, the only guy who would step up and fight him, because I guess that's what Dan Hooker does, is just fight people. So off the jump, dude, like give me your first thoughts on this fight. What do you feel like is going to happen? Do you feel like it's really going to be an Arman Tsarukyan fight, or do you think Dan Hooker stands a better chance than most people think?
I'm probably in the minority in this. I think Dan Hooker wins. This is where it's weird. I'm always about styles make fights. Now, obviously, people are going to think Arman wins this. Arman, I would say, is the second best pure wrestler in the division. I think pure wrestling, I give that to Gamrot. But in terms of MMA, I think Arman's the better grappler. My issue with Arman is one particular thing, and I think this is where I feel like Dan Hooker wins, but I wouldn't pick most other people to beat Arman. His entries and striking range to me are still really bad. And this is what I mean. If we go all the way back to the fight, I believe Joaquin Silva, if we even look at the Charles fight where he looked the best he's probably ever looked in terms of having a signature performance, the problem with Arman for me is anytime he steps into range, he is there to be hit. Now, he's able to negate it. He's got a chin. We've seen him really hurt in his UFC career at least just one time, and that was Joaquin Silva. I mean, he made Joel Alvarez look like an amateur, which is a very underrated win.
Right.
But
you don't know Joel Alvarez Hab train. I like that, bro.
Yeah, but my thing with Arman is Dan Hooker. I'm not really trying to compare it to the Gamrot fight because they are two different styles of wrestling. Gamrot's going to be a guy who he honestly struck a lot more than you would think in a fight with Dan Hooker, but he's a guy who's going to shoot very low to the ground. He's kind of war, not setting them up the same way with strikes, whereas Arman will kind of kick out at range and eventually he'll duck under. But to me, Dan keeps his hands pretty low as is. So he already is kind of meeting him at that level, already having the hands a bit lower. Dan is also a guy where if even if you take him down, unless you have like essentially Islam level top pressure where you're going to immediately be able to get into that dominant position and get the submission, I think he makes it tougher than people would think. But for me, Dan, I feel like has probably had Arman on the radar where he knows he's probably going to fight Arman. He said it for months and months. No one else is going to fight you but me. Arman's
Yeah.
talking about maybe Dan, Patty, Ilia. His focus has been every which way. And I think honestly, the experience that Dan probably took from the Islam loss and even the Gamrot fight, I think it comes twofold. I just think comes full circle in a fight with Arman. And I think it's gonna be one of those like very close 48-47 ones where you could argue Arman maybe won, maybe Dan won, maybe similar to how the Gamrot fight was. Some people
Right.
thought Gamrot won, some people thought Dan won. To me, the biggest question would be for Arman is he improved his striking entries? Because if he's still entering range, particularly boxing range, the same way, it makes me not want to pick him against Dan. But if it was someone like, let's say, like a Fiziev, for example, I'd feel differently because Fiziev likes everything to be a lot more clean. But
Right.
Dan, he'll let it be gritty, and Dan will just kind of eat. I think whatever Arman brings at him, unless Arman just there's something where I don't know, he's hitting the bag and it's falling off the chain, even though it's already like dangling as is. But
Those are tricks. Those are tricks. See, Dan Hooker's nickname is the Hangman. People like to think of Dan Hooker, the Dustin Poirier fighter, right?
mm-hmm,
Dan Hooker's a very experienced grappler. Now,
mm-hmm,
I'm going to disagree with you on who you picked. I can see a path to victory for Dan Hooker for sure. I don't rate Dan Hooker very highly. I rate him as a very, very good journeyman. But I don't rate him as quite like Arman Tsarukyan is, right? And the reason I say that is you watch Arman versus Charles Oliveira. Now, I feel like Charles Oliveira is a much more tricky grappler because he likes to throw up submissions to make you move, and that's how he almost caught Arman Tsarukyan in their fight.
mm-hmm.
Dan Hooker's going to throw up a couple submissions, but it's not going to be as sticky as Charles Oliveira's is. So I
Right.
feel like knowing how well he did against Charles Oliveira, and granted, it's been some time since he's fought, so ring rust can play into factor here and stuff. But knowing that, I'm looking at this like maybe, maybe Armin's going to look really good here. Or he might just bang him out, which would be crazy because, Dan Hooker's hella durable. Like he's very durable. Um, I don't think it's going to be easy for Arman Tsarukyan, though. I'll agree with that because people are underrating Dan Hooker in how much punishment he can take and how much damage he can do while receiving that punishment. Um, 50-50, I think, if they're fighting 10 times, I'm giving Arman 6, 7. Uh, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it. No, no, I'm a 35-year-old man out here saying 6, 7. No, no. And look, you just hit it instinctively, bro. Oh, this is staying in. This is staying in. Oh my gosh, we ain't cutting that. I can't believe I did that. I give him 7 out of 8. How about that now, Armin? You just got bumped up because I'm a dummy.
7 out of 8.
There we go. But yeah, I do think this is a tougher fight for Armin than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I'm not a betting guy, but the odds makers have him like plus 280 or minus 280 or something like that. I think that's a bit disrespectful for what Dan Hooker is because he's still a very dangerous fighter and he does have a little bit sloppy takedowns and Dan Hooker's really good at snatching the guillotine. So I really don't know where to go on this.
I don't know. See, the thing with Arman is I don't think anyone will be able to submit him until proven otherwise. I mean, he got out of whoa, I will say this. That guillotine from Charles in the first round, thank whatever deity you believe in that Armand shorts were the ones that could come down. Because if he was wearing like those valet tudo shorts, Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
He's going to sleep. And then even that would it was it an anaconda or was it more like a ninja choke? I can't remember from that
I
from
think
front
I think he
headlock.
switched or something like that in
He might
between.
have
Yeah.
switched the grip, but that one where Armand went flat, and then at first people were like, "Oh, he went out," but then whole time I think it was a Darce actually. It was a Darce, I
Yeah,
think,
and that's your
because
defense to a Darce is just
yeah,
starfishing. It
yeah.
looks goofy, but it's like this
But
works.
it does work though because
Yeah.
it just takes away any a little that little bit of pressure. But
Yeah.
man, so I don't know if he'd get submitted by any, but the thing that is interesting for Armand is that he hasn't really had an offensive submission game at all. He's primarily been more top pressure, some really nasty ground and pound. I mean, again, he and Joel Alvarez, that fight, he made like a crime scene. That was brutal. But my thing with Armand is he had a grappling match with Benson Henderson. I get Bendo is like 40 plus years old at this point or close to it,
Right.
but he's still a really high level jiu-jitsu guy. Like pure
Yeah.
grappling, you can extend the lifespan a little bit longer. And he put him out cold with the head and arm choke. And I'm thinking, the Armand of 3, 4 years ago probably wouldn't do that. He probably just beat him by like points. But by
Right.
putting him head and arm and putting him out kind of quick, that's
I'm
where it's a little scary.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm a big dude and I'll get mount sometimes and head and arm is like one of my favorites. That and Americana, of course. Uh that and Americana, of course. I'm like, oh, you can't get up. I'm just too heavy. So dude, when you get a nasty head and arm put on you though, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
So this fight, it's such a high level fight and it's such a high contender fight. It's so important for the division because um Ilia Topuria is at the top. And I think
Right.
part of me thinks Arman wins this fight is because I want to see Ilia Topuria against not Dan Hooker. Let's be real. I don't want to see Topuria versus Hooker. If Arman wins this and he wins it convincingly, I think he's the toughest challenge for Topuria. Not Old Man Gaethje, not Patty the Batty, nobody except for Arman Tsarukyan really has a shot at beating him at lightweight right now.
This is where, again, I think with Armand, this is where I think it's a weird position. Let's say Armand goes out there and he wins, but maybe the fight isn't super clean. All right, maybe he takes a little bit of damage. They're gonna ask him, "Oh, can you fight Ilya like in January, February?" He's gonna go, "I need to rest up." They're gonna say, "Oh, you turned in the fight. Kid doesn't want to
Yep,
fight. Kid
every
didn't want to
time.
fight. Your kid didn't want to fight. We're giving it to Patrick Pimlet. Patrick Pimlet's gonna go fight Ilya." That's where I feel like this booking, I didn't like it because I feel like I would have rather seen Dan fight someone like Gaethje because that's a fight we missed out on, and that would be,
Yeah.
I think, fight of the year, like just guaranteed, right? Or maybe he fights Patty. Yeah, when they're doing the rankings, they're for example, Usman bumped down all the way to 8. I think that's the way of telling Usman, hey, kid, you're not getting a title shot, kid. You're gonna have to fight loser Belal Ian or something like that, or maybe Protest Morales, one of them. With this fight, I just my hope is whoever wins between Dan and Armand, I want them to do it quick. And I would, but the problem is I don't like the idea of having to do a 2 month turnaround. But if that's what it's got to be, I don't want them to get put in a position where they got to say no to a fight. And then especially if it's Armand, they're gonna say, "Oh, look, kid, he got an event. He had to pull out against Islam, and he's turned down title fights. This kid, you know what? Yeah, get ready to fight Gamrot in the rematch, kid. All right."
Yeah. So this brings up an issue. I'm an old guy, dude. I like old history for stuff, right? And the reason the Ali Act was put into place in boxing, okay? This goes back. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let me plug a book here real quick. How about that?
Mm.
Mike Tyson, Iron Ambition. This is his story about him with Cus D'Amato. This book goes into detail why the Ali Act got put into place. A lot of people don't know Cus D'Amato is the big reason why the Ali Act was put in place in boxing. He had a guy by the name of Floyd Patterson. Okay, Floyd Patterson was one of the best. He's Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson. Very beautiful boxer. Didn't quite have the power, but he was still the whole that
I
kind
know
of stuff.
about Floyd Patterson. I played Fight Night Champion. I
Oh, you
I, I know
know
who.
then.
I
So
know.
they didn't want to give Floyd Patterson the title fight against Archie Moore. Okay, Archie Moore was the champion, but Archie Moore, I believe he was in like the pockets, or he was just he was going to agree to fight a white fighter, and they were very much trying to get the belt back into the hands of a white guy back in the 1950s. Cus D'Amato has his guy. He's like, Floyd Patterson kills this dude. He kills this dude. So I want my guy to fight for the title. And eventually he goes to court and they eventually win. and Floyd Patterson gets to fight for the title. And lo and behold, Cus D'Amato, he was right about something in boxing. So this is kind of the exact reason why MMA is going to need something like this, because like Arman Tsarukyan's being boxed out of fighting for the title when he very clearly deserved it last year. Doesn't
Right.
quite deserve it now because there's others that are making cases for it. But this is kind of the reason why, because there's this monopsony going on, and they can choose who fights for the title. That is exactly why legislation was brought into boxing in the first place. So doing this is really going to kind of hurt their case on that.
Yes, this is. I think the issue I have too is I think the UFC, man, there's one I can't say what's going on because there's a certain title fight that I think they're thinking about making, and I was only told this by someone, but I'm just gonna dance around a little bit. There's a title fight that I'm being told they're gonna make in a weight class where the problem is it makes no sense. This person should not fight for the belt because I think they already had their chance at it before.
Right.
They're probably going to get it again, and the fans are going to justify it because they're going to say that this person's win that they got within this year earned it, even though they really didn't earn it. And they're going to skip over two people who deserve it a whole lot. So people can probably put two and two together if they know what I'm referring to. But I think the issue is this Paramount deal. This
Yeah.
Paramount deal, they're going to try to get the name values and the fights that they feel like are going to deliver in terms of entertainment value. And I think a lot of guys are going to suffer from this. And the idea, though, that the UFC is MMA, like people want to
Yeah.
always say there is other promotions. I understand that. But the truth be told, outside of some regions of the world, if you're not in the UFC, most of the world doesn't care. That's
Right.
just and that's not indicative of what I'm saying. But especially if you don't believe me, ask a lot of these guys who are fighting in other promotions, what is your earning power? It's not a whole lot. Some of these
Right.
promotions say they can pay better, but realistically, we saw the PFL have to cut down to 500K
Yeah.
for the tournament because you just can't match the UFC. The UFC is artificially making your ceiling here,
Right.
whereas you see with boxing, you can take, for example, someone who's not like the biggest name but is skilled. They're gonna out earn 99% of the MMA population in like one or two fights.
Right.
So that's why for me, I mean, I hope either guy wins in the sense where Arman, I think he's the legit contender towards Ilia, and I would love to see that fight because I think honestly I might pick him to beat Ilia. Honestly.
He's a big dude.
Yeah. And as for Dan, I love Dan so much. So I would love to see him get the win. I don't want to see him lose against anybody, but I just don't like the idea though that Arman has to take this fight in particular because I feel like it's one of those things where I get he pulled out, but at the same time, there's guys who have done worse.
Yeah.
And you've given, I mean, we've seen guys get title shots off of losses, not even winning their fight. I mean, not that
Yeah.
long ago,
Yeah.
we saw,
Yo,
I get
well.
it. Yeah, you're well. Like, I get you well. He's
Yo.
scary. Izzy asked for him, but
No.
so,
No.
and I mean, John Jones, you talked about John Jones would never main event another fight card again after the whole debacle with Chael Sonnen and Dan Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe he's remembering that for the White House card, but he hasn't kept that end of the bargain in terms of anything else.
Well,
So,
he ruined UFC 200. It was supposed to be him versus DC at UFC 200, and Brock Lesnar was literally in the crowd, like gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna fight whoever, whoever wins this." Wait, no, hold on, that was a different card. No, scratch that. No, Brock Lesnar was when DC beat Stipe.
oh yeah, DC Stipe,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Brock was on that
Brock was
200
on that
card.
card. Yeah, Brock was on that
Yeah,
card, and
yeah.
they had to move it. Yeah. So, anyways, we're running short on time. Ian Machado-Garry, Belal Muhammad. It's a weird fight. This is Ian Machado-Garry's second shot at the elite of the welterweight division. Of course, I'm referring to the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, and he gets a mulligan for that for taking it on short notice. Do you think he has a shot against Belal Muhammad, who's a really good wrestler and brings a really good pace and a really good volume?
1000%. I think
Yeah.
you can't say Ian is outgunned against anybody because the one thing that Ian does well that some people love or hate, he always fights someone where they're the weakest. He has probably some of the best game planning I've seen of any fighter, especially at a guy where even young. Like, I mean, younger Ian, we saw him go life and death with people you probably don't even remember the names of. But as he's matured, he's went out there and he's whether if it's exciting or not, depending on who you're referring to, he finds a way to win more often than not. Only lost in the UFC Shavkat. My issue though with picking Ian is I still don't know if I trust his ability to defend low.
Yeah.
Right? When he fought Shavkat, he defended everything up here. Shavkat trying to go for the trips, throws, not getting him. But the moment Shavkat started level changing down here, then that's where Ian started to have trouble. Belal already having that lower center of mass, he's going to get in there. But the part of me does think, though, where Ian knows what's at stake. He knows if he goes out and knocks out Belal, he's the last person that you see. We already saw Pratis and Morales. He beat Pratis. If he goes out there and he knocks out Belal or gets a finish, they're probably trying to do Ireland versus Dagestan too, even though it's not really the same exactly, but I wouldn't put it past the UFC to try to do something like that.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to move him to title shot. That's what the Belal fight's about. I don't, Belal, I've never, he's kind of like a Dan Hooker. I never thought he would, be that great. He obviously won the title, put a beating on Leon Edwards. I'm sorry. My condolences. Uh, put a beating on Leon, but like Ian Gary, man, he's weird because he brings a different game plan every fight. He's obviously very clearly a smart fighter, very clearly a clever fighter. So I think, he's a student of the game. I do think he's paying attention to the first Leon Edwards fight where Leon looked great, the Jack Della Maddalena fight, and you can see kind of where they had success. And it was like, making sure Belal had to follow you instead of exiting on a straight angle, you taking the initiative. And like, as we saw with like Carlos Prates, you know, he he can handle that. He can handle that kind of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one wrinkle that Ian had against Pratis was always head kicking. So Pratis' hands had to come up,
Yep.
up, up, up
Yep.
all the time. And then eventually level change through, boom, 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 just rinse and repeat. So it's hard to even say what he's going to do because you'd have to think whatever Bilal's weaknesses are, he's probably going to try to do that to a T. And he's
Yeah.
not going to deviate. He's not going to, you can't rage bait him into a scrap. Like maybe earlier in his career, against was it Song Kanan and
Yeah.
Jordan Williams,
Yep.
like those fights where I remember seeing those, I thought,
Yeah.
but then right around the D-Rod fight and up, that's where it was like,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
We
like,
get it. We know what you are. You are what you're being advertised as.
yeah.
So
So,
what's your pick in this fight then, man? Who do you think? I'm going Machado-Garry.
it's hard.
Mm.
Knowing the momentum, and I think I probably got to go Ian. I think the way you beat Ian is you have to out damage him. Like in
Yeah.
those moments, you got to have the bigger ones. I don't know if you're able to finish a guy like Ian unless you have something in terms of, because I mean, Shavkat had the bigger moments. That's
Right.
why he really won. I think I'm gonna go Ian, but I feel like there's a part of me. I have this weird gut feeling he finds the finish. Like they're like it seems like everything is going in his favor, and I think he goes out there somehow finishes Belal. I don't know exactly how exactly he does it, but I think he turns up the intensity slightly a bit more because he recognizes there is a chance where if he does make it a little bit unimpressive, they might go look to a Morales. They won't look to Pratis. I don't think it'd be Pratis, but
No, it's too soon.
or maybe they renege on the rankings thing and just say, "Oh, Usman Islam, legacy fight." Da, 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 da. But if
That's
Ian
what's gonna
goes out
happen.
there and he like wins,
Yeah.
yeah, he's next. You can't even deny him.
Yep. Well, Zombieman Jay, appreciate you, man. I thank you for coming on. It was it's an honor to talk to you. You're a good dude. I really like your work. What you working on these days? Where can everybody find all your stuff at?
Yeah, so primarily on TikTok, Zombieman Jay, YouTube as well. I'm definitely looking to upload more on YouTube. In fact, should have a video out on YouTube by the end of this week or maybe next week. I've been trying to do more video essay style content, more longer form stuff like stuff, I don't know, people who watch video essays, like, that little stuff you can listen to in the background while you're washing dishes or, I don't know, doing laundry or something. That's the vibe.
That's me. Yep. Cool, man. Hey, well, appreciate it, dude. Hoping to have you on again. I appreciate you,
No,
brother.
absolutely. I'd love to be on again.